Lander.
Here.
Chair Sherman.
Here.
Unicorn.
Great. Let's stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'm going to go ahead and make a motion to approve tonight's agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
Great. Dr. Petrie with the second. All those in favor of approving tonight's agenda, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Great. I'm going to go ahead and also make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda. Pretty small. One item. Item A, payment of invoices. July 8th through August 4th, 2023. Is there a second to that motion?
Second.
Great. Director Lauer with the second. All those in favor of approving tonight's consent agenda, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. All right. Before we get into our first item, I thought I would just let everyone know tonight, for the first time, we're at Oakland Middle School. So if anyone's watching from home or if anyone in the room doesn't know where they are, no, we're at Oakland Middle School. And I do have to say, as we look at the bond and we're looking at upgrades to Oakland, adding space, this media center is incredibly tiny. I wish there were more people from the community here to see this. It's tinier than I would say almost any of the elementary schools that I've seen in the district, for sure. So this would be one of the areas that would be addressed with the bond. So just to make that point. And anyway, so now we'll move on to our section here is our strategic direction of fostering a safe, welcoming, and inclusive environment for all staff and students. And that will start with Carissa Keister, who's going to speak to our 23-24 operational plan. Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Superintendent Funk, members of the board, Chair Sherman. I'm excited tonight to talk to you about our operational plan. You've heard about this throughout the year. We've been talking about the work that's been going on behind the scenes to create an operational plan. And we're going to roll this out to staff in a couple of weeks, so we wanted to make sure you had a chance to see it in our community as well. An operational plan is really designed to help give us a guidebook for how we're going to do our work. It will provide a lot of direction and focus for our staff in the year ahead. With that, I'll ask you to move forward. This all started by getting feedback from our community. In order to create a plan that really works for everyone, we wanted to hear from our students and our families and our staff about what was most important to them. So we had some focus groups earlier this fall and asked people to describe to us what they want their experience to be in our school system. These are aspirational. For many of these things, they may or may not be happening already, but it's ultimately where we want to get so that everybody in our system can say these things from a student perspective, that they feel seen and heard and accepted, or from a staff perspective, that they feel valued and respected as a member of the learning community. These are the things that we are really basing our work on so that we can meet these desired daily experiences. So from there, we spent some time thinking about our purpose. What is it we're really here for? I love this picture. This is one of my favorite ones from last year. I mean, this is what we want. We want to inspire curiosity and a love of learning in every child. You can see it on his face, and hopefully you'll be able to see this on the faces of all of our students as we do our work. Our goal is to provide them, or our purpose is to provide them with a wide range of engaging opportunities to help build that resilience and empathy that they're going to need as they get out into the world. We also looked to determine who we are. One of the important things when you're creating a plan is to figure out who it is that we really are. What are our beliefs and what are the things that make us unique? So the beliefs that came out of our work with our families and students and staff were that everyone belongs. Everyone has a voice. All students deserve an excellent education. The whole child matters, and curiosity thrives here. We also talked about what that means. So as a pony, how do we define what it means to be a pony? That means that we're inclusive and welcoming, we're curious, we're resilient and empathetic, and we're spirited and enthusiastic. We like to have some fun here too. We're the ponies after all. That's a unique mascot. It's something to be proud of, and it's really a part of our personality. So that's what that is trying to define for us.
And fun is in my name.
Can't us an opportunity to bring that up.
Took a year for that to come up. Just saying.
So all of that leads to our strategic directions. This is really the hard work of trying to set some goals for us as an organization, and then from the strategic directions coming up with what are those actual initiatives and things that we're going to focus on. So strategic direction A, you should be familiar with, it's in your board agenda every single meeting, is that we're going to ensure the learning process is adaptable to meet the needs of our kids. B is all about creating a safe and welcoming environment for everyone, staff and students. C is about utilizing our systems and aligning our resources so that we can be doing our work in an efficient manner and that everything we're doing is supporting learning. And D is about developing strong partnerships with our communities. So from all of that, one of the things that is really important to Dr. Funk and I think to our district as a whole is to have some focus. For those of you who have been around the district for a while, like I have, we've had a lot of strategic plans and some of them are really big and not very realistic to try to accomplish in a year. So this plan is trying to be very focused on a couple of key things. It's not about how many things we can do, but how we can do a few things really well. So our main focus this year is literacy, and as a community we hear a lot about that. We know how important it is for our kids to know how to read, and we know that we maybe haven't always done the very best in this area, that we do have room to improve, and we have staff that are really focused on wanting to do this work well. There's a lot of focus going to be on training our teachers, giving them the resources they need, following some of the new science that we're learning about reading, and being able to improve literacy for all of our students. Equity inclusion is on here as well. This can sometimes be a loaded term that gets people a little concerned, but this is really about just making sure all of our kids have the opportunity to be successful. And whatever that means for them, sometimes it means we have to create some extra opportunities so that there's a level playing field for everyone, but it's truly about making sure all of our students have those opportunities to learn. And social and emotional learning and mental health have been a big focus for many years and need to continue to be. Our kids have a lot of things going on in life, and we need to be able to support them so that they can learn. So helping to reduce some of those barriers or remove those barriers and allow them to focus on their learning. So those are the key areas. And this, go ahead. This one gets a little bit more into the weeds of the work that we're going to do.
Can you go back to the previous slide? I just want to make a point because the last two, I could easily see those applying to the staff as well.
Yes.
Is that is the intent to, so that, maybe teachers are coming with a lot of experience and maybe they need more in a certain area, or the social emotional piece certainly.
I'm glad you brought that up. As we talked about at the beginning, a lot of the feedback that we received from our staff was that they needed that kind of support for themselves, and so that they have the tools to be able to support their students as well. And you'll see that on the next slide as we get into kind of the real actual work. There's professional development initiatives at the bottom here. So in all of these areas, there are opportunities for our staff also to have more support and more resources given to them to help in those areas. So again, this is something we'll be spending a lot more time with our staff. We wanted you to see it, but ultimately we've broken it down by each strategic direction of the key areas of our work this year. So literacy, K-5 is a big focus. You also know we have a new science curriculum that you've approved recently. Thank you for that. So that'll be another big thing that our teachers will be working on to roll that out to students. As you get into some of the other strategic directions, there's that alignment of mental health support services, getting into C, priority-based budgeting. Marie's going to do a lot of work with us and our team to make sure that we're really focusing our resources where they need to be to support learning. And getting into D, of course, the bond, you mentioned that already, but that's a huge area of focus for us this year as we work with our community. So we will be going through this with our staff in depth, and this will really be helping us to focus our work on the things that matter in the year ahead. Just wanted to show you, we won't spend a lot of time on this, but there are a lot of layers below this that are going to be our work internally, and one of them is the district vision card. This is something that we will be creating to help us have metrics in place to determine if we're focusing on the right things and what's that progress looking as we move through over time. So we're finding different data points essentially for all of these different strategic directions to help us keep track and measure our progress, see if we're on track or what we need to do to adjust and make sure that we're meeting our goals. The next thing is the action cards at the school and department level. This is where each of our schools and all of our departments are going to look at the the operational plan and figure out what's my part in this. What are the things that we need to do as a school or as a department to make these strategic directions really happen. So each school will be sitting down actually tomorrow we have our data day. They'll be looking at the information that they have on their students and on their achievement and determining what they need to do and what are their initiatives for the year. We were doing that at our department levels too, and again, we'll have some progress monitoring throughout this to make sure that we're really staying on track. This process is new to us in Stillwater, and I'm really excited about it. I think it's going to help give us more, it's going to help keep us more focused than we have in the past. As I've said, we have a history of these really big plans that are great in theory, but really hard to try to get all of these different initiatives to happen. But to give each of our schools and our departments a couple of key, really important things that they can focus on to make sure that we're moving where we need to go. Our theme for the year is expect more. The superintendent sent out a message to staff just last week explaining what this means, that it's not about doing more, but it's about doing things really well so that we can have everyone just know that we're really focusing on what matters and that we have high standards for ourselves, we have high standards for our students, and we're going to put the resources behind it to make sure that we can accomplish our goals. So with that, any questions? I'm happy to answer. I'm sure Dr. Funk can help answer.
Any questions?
I just had a question about the focus on literacy, and I'm just wondering why it got focused to that as opposed to academic achievement in general.
I want to narrow the scope of what we're doing, and one of the concerns I have is from being here a year and listening and talking to people is we try to do a lot of things wide, but we're really not as focused on depth. And our literacy scores, historically, the last few years have been, in my opinion, unacceptable. And we need to provide our students a baseline ability to read if we're going to be successful in other areas. And so literacy is a focus not only in the district, but it's a focus across the state of Minnesota right now. And I think, I've sat here in board meetings where we've had members of the community come up and say that this is unacceptable. They're right, I concur with it. And basically, we expect more. And we are going to put our focus on turning the ship around in literacy, and I think the other pieces will follow along with that. So that's kind of the intent of that.
Any other questions? This is small. Under secondary, I think it was the key initiatives chart. Secondary has developmental design. Can you refresh my memory what that is?
It's the middle school version of responsive classroom.
Oh,
So the other thing, back to your point, Director Petrie, literacy is the big piece, but at the same time, if you can look on this slide, K-5 science implementation, we haven't had a curriculum. That is going to be a core area for us as well. And that's what we've really tried to do is break up K-5, here are your 3 areas of focus. And so that's where we're at on it. And then as we monitor how we're doing within these areas, a year from now, we may come to the board and say, okay, we are shifting our area of focus over here. So.
any other questions? Yeah, Dr. Kellenberg.
The action card, which is probably the next one there.
One more. Thank you.
Who does those? Is everybody doing that, or just if somebody has an initiative that they're taking?
So it's done at a school level or a department level. So tomorrow we're going to have our leadership teams from our schools come in, and they're going to work on developing this for their school.
Okay.
So they'll sit down as a team and they'll talk about what are the real priorities, and they might have 3, 4 action cards with those
Okay.
key initiatives. That doesn't mean there's nothing else happening. Obviously, there's going to be other work that needs to be done, but these are going to be the key initiatives that they're putting their time and resources into.
Right.
on top of that, so are we gonna be seeing, the metrics that you're gonna be using or the goals that they're setting? I mean, what sort of a reporting process are we gonna see on this?
I have met with a few directors over the last few days, and what I asked of them is I want to update twice a year on where we're at with these metrics. So they're going to be putting together the metrics at the building level tomorrow. We will then see them at the director and principal level sometime in the next month. And then mid-year, okay, if this is what we are measuring, how are we doing? And then again at the end of the year. So you will see a roll-up of that at the board level, probably mid-year and at the end of the year.
And then those goals could change for the following year,
Wait.
potentially?
Based on how we're doing, correct?
Okay.
And that's one of the key differences from what we've done in the past too. Usually you set a strategic plan for 3-5 years. This is really meant to evolve and change over time. So every year we reevaluate and say, yep, we're on target, great, or no, we need to change our priorities a little bit to meet our goals. So it's more adaptable.
Will this get communicated out to families, and if so, have you thought about how that would go?
Yes. So we are first, as I mentioned, going to be rolling this out to staff, but it will be going out to family in a lot of different ways. One of the things that we're doing at the same time is we're using some of this to help rebrand the district and have some new messaging and some things that come out as we're tying back to this plan. So I don't know that we'll spend as much time focusing on the plan with them, but the key elements of it are what we'll be talking about with our families. I don't think they necessarily need to know all the ins and outs of how we're going to do this and get in the weeds, but to know that we're focused on these key initiatives, or to know that these are the things that we're really trying to do to help create those desired daily experiences for students. So there's a few different ways we'll be rolling it out, but mostly just in our messaging throughout the year to families.
And I think that's great, because what I hear a lot from parents is just they want to be a part of it and help, and we want them to be a part of it and engaged and help. And so what can they be doing at home to support their students, their classrooms, their schools? And certainly it would roll up into something, the broader initiatives, the action cards and things like that. But
When you look at the desired daily experiences for families, that's one of the things that came out really clearly is tell me what I need to do at home to help support what you're doing at school.
yeah, that's exciting. I love all of this. I think this is the first time that I can recall seeing something so specific and detailed and focused, and I think your observations, Superintendent Funk, are spot on, and Carissa, you as well, where we just tend to try to be all things to all people, and there's good intentions behind that, but there's a need to go deeper, I think, in the fewer key areas. So.
Just, yes, 100%, and, yes, I've been around the district for a while too. I've seen some of these, encyclopedic, kind of plans that we've had in the past, and I think it's true that we just can't, that we can't focus, when we're trying to do a million things, we can't have an impact in one particular thing. And I appreciate that you have sort of identified, pressure points. And obviously literacy is a big one that matters. It matters to us at this table. It matters, to administration. It matters to parents. And I appreciate that you've chosen a few things to try to focus on. And I look forward to hearing more updates about how things are going. Oh, yes, Dr. Fiona.
Yeah, I would also kind of echo that. I mean, well done. I think this is I love the idea of having a plan in place that's manageable, that's flexible, that's aspirational, but also allows ways of providing checkpoints of keeping everyone accountable that's involved in this process. So, so kudos. This is awesome. I'm excited to see how this unfolds over the next year and more.
All right. With that, we're going to move on, unless there's any other questions or comments, to our next item, and Chris is going to stick around for this one, the district handbook update.
Well, thank you. This one is short and sweet. So I'm just here to let you know that we are working on our district handbook. You have seen this in the past. Every year we bring this forward to let you know of the changes that have been made to our handbook. The handbook has a lot of important information for families. It includes all of the required notices and important policies, expectations, and rights and responsibilities for our students and parents. We have updated the handbook this year to match up to the new legislative changes as well. So as you're updating policies, we're also making sure those are updated in the handbook. And as the year begins, families will be asked to review the handbook and sign off that they have read it. So it's kind of an acknowledgement that they have received and reviewed the handbook. And that notice is required in Power School at the start of the year. So just here today to report to you that we have the handbook in place, and we're going to be sharing that with families as the school year begins. Any questions about the handbook? No? Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is under our strategic direction C, which is utilize systems and align resources in an efficient manner to support learning. And we're gonna bring Mark Drummerhausen to the table to talk about review and comment, MDE's review and comment for our bond.
Good evening, Chair Sherman, members of the board. Tonight, I'm here with great news. We got a positive review and comment from the Department of Education, or MDE. So just to kind of update you on what the process looks like, in June, you approved going out for a bond referendum with the items listed on the screen or within the review and comment. So after the meeting, we put together a review and comment, kind of submitted our proposal to the state. So we submitted to MDE. They got back to us last week with a positive. They either give us a positive and they're in favor of the review and comment, or it's a negative. We got a positive review and comment, which is great. After that, kind of the next steps are for us is we have to bring it to a public meeting, which we're here tonight as school meeting to discuss the results of the review and comment. And then we have to publish the review and comment in our newspaper at least 48 days before the bond referendum and no more than 60 days. So we have a time that we will be within that window to make sure that it's posted in our newspaper to meet those requirements as well. So anyways, I'm here for any questions or comments that you have, but I just wanted to update you on the good news that we got from MDE last week.
Really good news. Will that also be on our website, the review and comment, or
Yes.
is it only go in the paper?
Yep.
Okay, so it'll be in both.
Legally, you have to publish it in the newspaper, so that's kind of the things
Right.
that we have, but it'll also be on the
Um,
website as well.
Right. So just so the whole community can see it if they want to. Anything that stood out to you that you want to share with the board? I mean, we're obviously great news.
No, they just kind of give you
Yeah,
a positive and
thumbs up
negative.
on-
They don't quite get into detail. It's
Great.
just,
Well, thank you for sharing that.
And the significance of that is, if it's a positive review and comment, you need 50% plus one vote for the referendum to be successful. If it's a negative review and comment, you need 60%.
Okay,
So, very significant that it was a positive review and comment.
great. Well, thank you for sharing the good news. We'll keep the good news going. Thank you very much. All right, we're moving on to our next strategic direction, strategic direction A, which is ensure the learning process is adaptable to meet individual student needs, and this brings continued policy work. I will turn it over to, is it Bob, to review kind of the next batch. Oh, not Bob.
Well, Bob is responsible for policy.
Oh,
But it's a six,
Okay.
but it's a
Well,
600
because
series.
600 series, so Caleb and Don are here. Okay, that makes sense. So we'll bring you all to the cozy table here, to hot room cozy table, and discuss this. I'll turn over you to maybe kind of what we did last time, which I think everyone had some positive feedback on. Maybe point out some significant changes based on the legislation that we should be aware of. But primarily, these changes are required, so.
Thank you, Chair Sherman, members of the board, Superintendent Buck. As you mentioned, with the close of the last legislative session and the omnibus education bill, there were some statutory changes that impact our policy work. So we're bringing, I believe, 5 policies to look at today for our first reading, and they all follow in line with statutory requirements and looking at guidance from MSBA.
And actually, I should clarify, I think this is action tonight, correct?
Yes,
Oh,
correct.
This is just because the changes are legal, just so the board is aware, we're asking for action too.
So the first policy to take a look at is one that you're familiar with, as we passed it originally back last January, policy 603. You can look through and you'll see changes that are largely in line with statutory changes. One of the additions that you'll see on the second page is the creation of a school site team. And so this will be carried out through our building leadership teams that have been meeting in June as we look at school improvement planning, and they're actually meeting again tomorrow to begin some of the hard work, the important work of planning for the school year. That is 603. Like I said, you'd be very familiar with it as you dig into the details. Similar with 604, instructional curriculum. This policy looks at the curriculum of the district, the required areas that we want instruction in, and courses to develop and designed. If you look at section 2B, section 2 is kind of a rearrangement. You'll see it later on in the yellow below to match with MSBA. A large section was omitted from our current policy, looking at reading instruction. That will be introduced in an upcoming policy looking at the READ Act. That was a large section of the omnibus bill. Moving on, you'll see in section 4 a reference to parental curriculum review. That also is found extensively within our policy 606. So you'll see some duplication of ideas there. Section 5, CPR and AEI, that was part of our old policy. If you look at MSBA, you'll see there's a much longer section. We decided to keep the truncated version that we had passed in January. No changes were made there with the statute or with MSBA, so we decided to leave that as it was. And the rest, again, is bringing it in line with MSBA policy.
Could I ask a quick question since we're on this one? Under section 4, that parental curriculum review, it mentions that there's a specific procedure. Has the new legislation impacted that procedure, or is it purely in the policy?
It's purely in the policy.
Okay.
The legislation did not change the process.
The process that we already do. Perfect. Great, thanks.
Okay, 618 is assessment of student achievement. And our original policy was very much different. There was 2 lines, I think. So we aligned with MSBA on this policy. And the yellow, what was changed from what MSBA had originally in theirs, and it aligns with the different standards and criteria for assessment that the legislation has implemented. So that's pretty much that policy. 620, this one is credit for learning, and what we did on this one is kind of blended the two, because we had to make sure that it aligned with our policy and our requirements on, like, especially when we, if you look at section 4, transfer of academic credit from other schools, we do, if it doesn't align with a core content area, we do accept credits and put them in as electives. And that is a little bit different than MSBA's policy. And the other thing that was different is when we get into the weighted grade section, under section 8, we weight the AP classes and college in the schools and concurrent enrollment with 1.2. They're multiplied by 1.2. We do not weight honors courses in PSEO. So those were the blended pieces that we pulled over from our old policy and then took the MSBA model from there. Yes.
Question on this
Yeah.
one? Under section 6, it talks about how students can earn up to 2 elective credits if they work in a hospital or child care center. Is that new legislation that is
Yes.
coming through here? And have we ever done something like that before in this
No.
district?
No.
Cool. Yeah.
So that's exciting.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, but it begs the question, why just those industries?
Yeah.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah. Maybe it's a start in that area or that work experience.
Yeah. Okay. Do they need any kind of coursework and alignment to it? I guess I maybe should read it closer.
There verification, and follow-up verification of the hours worked, but I don't believe it's connected to a course, cause that would
yeah.
create its own credit.
Right, okay. Okay, interesting, thanks.
And then the final policy is policy 624, which is retitled online instruction. This is also a delete all and replace with MSBA, in line with legislative changes. The big change with this would be in section 4, digital instruction. There are new definitions included, but what this section allows districts to now do is to provide digital instruction, including full online courses to their students without having to go through prior approval process through the Department of Education. So this was a significant change. Districts had to complete a fairly rigorous application to offer online courses to their students. We are able now to do that without that application. We cannot offer online courses to students outside of our district without that application, but we can certainly have a lot more flexibility with the kinds of programming and the model of delivery that we offer. The rest you'll see is pretty verbatim to statutory language as well.
Do we see anything with the digital instruction changes that will be looked at in our own district? I mean, I know these are all new, and so probably being figured out and
Yeah.
reviewed for how it can be utilized, but.
So that will be a component that we build into our curriculum and instructional review process to identify, should this course be offered in a hybrid format or blended? Should it be offered full online? Should there be a variety there?
Okay.
So I know departments at the high school have been interested in exploring online delivery. And so we've kind of waited to see what the legislation would
Right.
land, and then we need to have some conversations across the district around the best ways to deliver that and the different parameters that we want to work with.
The online, you say only for those within our district, right? What about an open enrollee?
If they're enrolled members of our district, we can offer online instruction. What we can't do is offer instruction to students who reside outside of the district and attend another district.
Okay.
Well, this is more just about content delivery, not like an online school. This is more, right, this isn't necessarily like that. This would be more at a course level or a subject level, or could it be either?
I think it could be either. The way the language reads,
Okay.
it could certainly be, we can create an online program for Stillwater enrolled students.
Okay.
Previously, you had to be approved
Yeah, I
by the
remember that.
Department of Education. So this provides more flexibility to either create an entire online program or just individual courses.
Because I know around the pandemic, we looked and there wasn't a huge amount of interest in going to an online academy. So this might allow us in some smaller ways to actually see, is there an interest? Because we don't have to go all the way to an online academy, we can start maybe smaller or do something different within a class. Good to know.
So those are the updates to the policies. What we will need from the board tonight is a motion, second to approve.
So I'm gonna go ahead and make a motion to approve policies 603, 604, 618, 620, and finally 624. Can I get a second?
Second.
Director Kelsenberg with a second. Are there any questions, comments, other than what's already been asked? Just, I think it's helpful to know, and I always wanna thank just the group of policy people that come together and work and hash these out, and, it's an important part of the job and, that we have, and I'm thrilled that we're going more, per Dr. Funk's suggestion. We've had some older policies that are probably some of the older ones you've ever seen coming into a district, and some gaps, some pretty significant and glaring gaps of policies that we don't have that we should. And so moving forward with MSBA, people might be wondering, model policy, what is that at home? And that is something that we pay for as a district and have the ability to utilize those policies and then change them as we may need to fit our district, which Don, you mentioned a couple times. So I think it's the best of all worlds and allows us to catch up a little bit more quickly, getting things updated.
Just an example example, tonight, you are updating a policy that was last adopted in 2006 for online learning. I think our online learning is a little bit different today than it
Yeah.
did in 2006.
So I would just add that we probably got our money's worth from the MSBA model policies this year. With all of the, were there like 60-some policies that changed this year as a result of the legislative action? And if we would have had to just employ an attorney to do that work with us, God knows how much that would have cost, right? So I mean, taking advantage of these MSBA model policies is a fabulous thing, I think.
I totally agree, and it allows our staff to be focused, you know, on the students. So, with that, we have a first and a second and all that kind of shared background. Without any questions, we'll go for a vote. All those in favor of approving these 5 policies, raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. We have a couple closed sessions tonight. Let me read my statement. The next 2 items on the agenda are closed sessions. The first closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 subdivision 3C3, which allows the board to go into closed session to develop or consider an offer to purchase or sell real property. The second closed session per Minnesota Statute 13D.05 subdivision 3, a public body may close a meeting to evaluate the performance of an individual who is subject to its authority. The public body shall identify the individual to be evaluated prior to closing the meeting. This employee is superintendent evaluation for 2022-2023 for Superintendent Dr. Funk. I will go ahead and make the motion to go to closed session. And can I get a second? Okay, Director Thielander with the second. All those in favor of moving to closed session, raise your hand and say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. We will go to closed. Thank you.
Where are we going?
Go somewhere or
Yes,
closed come to us?
and Katie,